Global warming is becoming an increasing issue in today's society and will only continue to grow as time goes on. One of the causes of global warming is the emission of fossil fuels into the environment, which could lead to an accelerated rate at which the ozone layer depletes. Furthermore, one of the main contributors of fossil fuels and carbon emissions can be attributed to over 1 billion vehicles found around the world. A way that this can be reduced is by implementing more public transportation in larger cities where the population is dense. However, converting large cities such as LA to having a high percentage of public transportation does come at a cost. The public will have to pay higher taxes and possibly toll rates to cover construction costs for new systems. Specifically, railroads are very expensive and construction can have negative impacts on the environment. Studies have shown, though, that there are mixed effects of public transportation. Some have proven to have lower costs than public transportation, while others show that they might not bring much benefit. The future of traffic and transportation in metropolitan areas will become more important as global warming becomes more of a problem as population increases. Cervero explains that thriving economies can have a positive impact on employment and salaries in large cities. In return, as these fluctuate, public transit will most likely be used as more people move to metropolitan areas for work. In the future, he says that it will be important for public transit to be increased to keep up with the populations. And more populations means more people, or more populations mean more cars, and more cars means more carbon emissions into the atmosphere, contributing to global warming. Therefore, it is necessary that a focus be put on converting large cities to high percentage public transportation as population increases. Although it will be costly at first to implement, the growing number of people within large cities should aid in cost recovery through taxes, fares, and reduced pollution. There are several different types of public transportation that could be made more prominent in cities. The first one that I will be discussing is railways and subway systems. These are some of the most popular forms of public transit in major cities such as New York and Paris. They work well in compact cities so that lengths of tunnels and railways are reduced and therefore there is less construction necessary. For instance, building railways will bring in heavy machinery for long periods of time until projects are completed. This will create extra fossil fuel emissions and added use of electricity that were not an issue before. In addition, they can sometimes be trash or waste that is a byproduct of increasing public transportation systems. This is a cost that needs to be considered when transforming major cities to rely more on public transportation. The other With the other forms of public transit as well, the costs and benefits need to be taken into account during the planning process. Littman describes the costs and benefits of public transit compared to automobile costs, including ride sharing and major forms of public transit in urban cities. He writes that transit tends to have lower total costs under urban peak conditions in comparison to automobiles. This observation shows that over a period of time, the lower cost of public transportation systems will outweigh the initial amounts spent to put them in place. Furthermore, Littman goes on to describe the costs and benefits of other alternative forms of transportation such as ride-sharing, which has lower marginal costs, and bicycling, which has minimal external costs in large cities. From these observations, it can be concluded that the cost of increasing public transit in large cities would be low in the long run. Another important part of the planning process for implementing public transportation is acquiring the funding for projects. It is important that this is done before working on the project to ensure that there will be enough money to complete it to its entirety. Bruckner describes instances of failure of transportation systems once they have been implemented due to lack of funding. For example, public buses might need extra funds from the government for a costly repair. There are two main ways in which funds can be gained from the public. One of these ways is development taxes, and the second way is highway tolls, which will both get money for public transport projects and also encourage people to ride public transit more so they don't have to pay the tolls. The great thing about these ways of garnering funds is that people that are contributing to them, whether through taxes or tolls, may feel a need to now ride on the public transportation since their money is going towards it. This will increase its use and revenue from bus passes or subway tickets. It is clear that a solid plan needs to be set in place so that costs are kept under control and there is a plan to pay off the debt. Oftentimes, people look to history or previous examples to direct decisions. This can be held true for the way that public transportation has previously performed in major cities and what kind of effect it has had economically and financially. There is a large report of over 258 projects on transportation infrastructures that shows that they are not performing as they had hoped, according to Fickerberg B. This had led to increases in costs for several cities in numerous nations. The lack of success in the implementation of these transportation projects is due to the fact that there was poor decision making put into place regarding costs and risks. In order for any project of any sort to be successful and worthwhile, meticulous research needs to be done about all of the different variables that would be affected. Otherwise, the unknown risks could be larger than expected and could end up being costly. This applies to bringing public transportation systems to large cities. For instance, there must be a market that would pay to use the new system in order to offset the cost of construction. The business functions of marketing and selling these new public transit systems are very important. In converting major cities to having larger transportation systems, there are many things that need to be taken into consideration. This includes both financial and environmental costs that will impact the people that live there for generations to come. For example, construction could have a negative impact on the city that overestimates the positive impact that results from the transportation system itself. Furthermore, there are studies that have shown that the systems don't always reduce fossil fuels in amounts that are measurable. However, as cities grow larger and as time goes on, the cost of converting large cities to a higher percentage of public transport may be small in comparison to the environmental benefits.